we are going to record this, so it'll get posted to both our annual pass page and our members page. So if you ever want to refer back to this, you are welcome to do so. So a lot of people, Bill's one of our chapter leaders. He's here. Glad to have you with us. So there's Susan from Louisville. Thank you all for coming. What? Forget the whole slideshow thing that I was going to do. We could just talk. We're all very happy to have you here. Glad to be here. If you wish to, put in the chat where you're joining us from. Most of us are from this Kentucky area, and that. Dolores is our outsider here.
Story of my life.
Coming to us from Florida. So, and that. So, if you are not familiar with our panelists and that, we do have Hage, who is in Louisville, and she helps us out in the professional development area, kind of a director of events. She's helped coordinate some of the webinars that we have, specifically these IIBA certification chats, right?
Hi, everybody. Welcome.
And Dolores Vadi, like I said, is from Florida. She also helps coordinate our BA speaker or our BA career series, and that. So both of them are helping us out and everything.
Hello, everybody.
Glad to have them. Richard is a former chapter leader. He's actually in Danville, a little bit south of Lexington. If you're not familiar with Kentucky. So, hey, we got Canada with us. Hi, Asha. Glad to have you with us. And Michigan. All right, Chris, we'll forgive you. Being from that state up north. All right, we will go ahead and get started. Thank you all for being here. Really happy to have you with us and all. Welcome to this session of our IIBA certification chat. So we are really going to talk about the value and the impact of the Cbap, the CCBA, and the ECBA. We have 4 Cbaps with you right here. Be glad to talk to you. We've held them for different times than that. Richard's 5-6 years. I think you've had yours.
2016.
Ann and Dolores are about 1 or 2 years that they've had theirs. And I'm the old fogey here. It's had mine since 2008. So we got some diversity and time in that. So I will go ahead and allow anybody who wants to take the mic first and tell us about the impact that the Cbap has had on your career.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Ann Hage, and I have been with the Bluegrass chapter since 2019, when I first decided to pursue my Cbap certification. I've been with the same company now for 17 years. My official role is a product specialist, but basically I write requirements and design all day long for new software development. So I had pretty much been, working in the role of a business analyst for many, many years. And I just never really knew formally what it was called. And so, I decided to, I heard the certification Cbap a couple of times. I'd seen it on signatures for different emails from colleagues that I was working with on an overseas project. And I decided to look more into it. And as I started to read more about the certification, everything was just resonating with me. I'm like, I know this is what I do. And so it just seemed like a natural a natural progression in my career. Now, since having obtained my CBAP, I'm still in my same position, again, 17 years with the same company, for the most part doing the same role. But I feel now a little bit differently about what I do on a day-to-day basis. And I'm not going to say before I was cutting corners, but there were a lot of things that I just didn't know. And so to formalize my training and to really put what I do into a more formal context, it's really helped me to become a better business analyst and a better product specialist. I write better requirements. I do a lot of things that I never did before, which is to review functionality in retrospect. I'm constantly going back to our requirements management system and trying to add attributes that were previously not documented. Whenever I'm adding new functionality into the system, if that particular area, I tend to look at the entire requirements management system now for that particular area of the system, and I really do my tracing now. And that's something I never did before. I'd never really had the time or the training to do things like that. And I also I feel proud. I just feel more proud at work. I feel that I'm respected a little bit more by some of my senior colleagues in the workplace. And I feel like my opinion is valued. And that really means a lot, because when you're with a company for as long as I have been, you tend to become comfortable with what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. And you're looking for ways, and you're asking yourself, is this all there is to it? Is this as good as it's going to get? And I can tell you that my certification has really helped me to step up in my role as a product specialist, business analyst. And so for me personally, it's helped me to see that this is definitely where I want to finish out my career, maybe even take it a little bit further in this area, because I was having, I'm at that age now where I'm like, okay, I've got about 15, maybe 20 more years in the workforce. If I'm going to make a career change, this is probably the time to do it. And having obtained my certification and seeing how much further I can go in this career has really helped me to solidify that this is where I want to be. This is where I'm going to finish out my career, either working as a business analyst, training other people to achieve their goals as well, or something to that effect. So for me personally, it's really helped me gain some clarity on what my future is going to look like.
Excellent, great. Dolores, did you have something to add?
Pretty much kind of like Ann, I've been at the same company for 20 years. Actually, I've taken two different roles there. One as a product specialist, Ann and I work in the same company. I started off there managing that department, and I've switched to what they call the implementation phase of the company. The big difference, I think, that the certification afforded me was the ability to see and use techniques that I haven't used in the past, that I was even unfamiliar with. Because in the implementation, I've been there approximately 10 years now in that particular role. I do a lot more process improvement, more so than development. The first part of my career was development, pretty much what Ann did. Now my role as one of the managers in the implementation of the software is I do a lot of process improvements. I do a lot of also current future state evaluations with our clients. I do a lot of new initiative reviews. I do a ton of stakeholder management functions, and a lot of the techniques, a lot of the, for lack of better terms, tools and tricks that we learn in the class, as well as having the interaction with other BAs in the Bluegrass chapter, or just overall when we listen in on presentations presented by IIBA, has afforded us the ability to utilize those things, take away some of those tricks and tips, and incorporate them into the day-to-day. And I've seen how that has really had a major impact in the way, we communicate with our, colleagues, with the way we communicate with our stakeholders. And just overall, I think, as Ann said, you get that level of confidence. You also get that level of credibility as well in the industry, as well as, with your colleagues and with your stakeholders. But on top of it all, I think the biggest thing that it walks away with is that, you've benchmarked yourself by getting your certification. You've benchmarked yourself against others who are in the profession. And, your certification says, hey, I've learned this, I know this, and I'm able to execute it. It's not just book knowledge. Now you've taken it, kind of boots to the ground and actually executed this. And it's really, impacted. And I think overall, not just personally, which is a win in of itself, but it really has translated into every facet of our, career. And you find yourself even doing that in the home arena as well. You find yourself some of the tips and tricks, techniques that you use to solve problems in the workforce, you find that they're helpful in your day-to-day life as well. So I think overall, it's, it's just a win all the way around. I would recommend anyone who hasn't taken it, obviously it's a work effort that has to be put in, but the rewards just overall, not just career. I mean, obviously with the certification, there's, employers are looking for that certification. So there's always a, greater financial gain from the certification. There's also more employability. There's a lot of other tangible effects of getting the certification. But I think, for most people, it's great to have, career goals and to have things that are tangibly measured. But at the end of the day, that sense of satisfaction, as Ann said, that sense of, I've got this and I can, and I am proficient at what I'm doing, that level comes in with the certification that really, overall just, makes it worth its weight for sure.
Absolutely. So I can agree with that. Absolutely. So Richard, you have something?
Sure. Yeah, I'd agree with everything that Ann and Dolores said. One difference in my situation is that I've been with my current employer just a short amount of time, a relatively short amount of time. So I'll speak to that a little bit. I work for R.J. Corman Railroad Group, which is based in Nicholasville, Kentucky. And I started there in 2018. I got my certification, my CBAP in 2016. And I would definitely say that having that certification when I was looking for the job definitely helped me, put me at the top of the list, I think. And then also during the interview process, and then as I started the job, and Dolores spoke to this as well, but it helped enhance my credibility. I think people understood the value of the certification, and that gave me a level of respect that I think helped as I started in the position. I would definitely agree with what they said about just it made me a better business analyst, even though I'd been doing it since around 2000. And I, like a lot of us, I think, no, you don't really start a lot of times specifically as a business analyst. You just kind of morph into the role. But I'd been doing that type of activity for quite some time. But going through the process of studying the Babcock, and then studying for the test, preparing for that, and actually taking the test, that definitely helped make me a better, more rounded business analyst. But I wanted to say that I think the part of the whole process that I benefited the most from was the study group that the Bluegrass chapter hosted. I found that to be especially valuable in the discussions that we had. So it was a relatively small group. I think we had 6 or 7 people at the time, but some really excellent discussions as we went through the Babcock and talked about test questions. And I mean, I just really learned a lot from the others in hearing their own reactions to certain situations and hearing about their experience. So while the certification and knowledge of the Babcock made me a better business analyst, I would say, and the tests was a valuable experience. Boy, being in that study group and having those discussions really helped me out a lot. So that's what I would say in general. And back to, when I started in 2018 in this new position, that was a time I think a lot of business analyst positions that were opening up were looking specifically for Cbaps, whereas that had not been the case before. And I haven't been looking for a job recently, but I'm sure that's still the case, and maybe even more so because of the amount of time that's passed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can tell you, when I applied for my current position, and I've been with the company for 7 years, so kind of in between y'all. And the position I applied for said that the CBAP was desired, and knowing my manager and that, I know a lot of the posts we put out for BA jobs now say CBAP required. And I know at one time we had 15 CBAPs in the company. And, people have come and gone. I don't know if it's still, but we still got quite a few. I'm sure there's more than 10 still within the company and everything. So, my company does, fully support the CBAP and IIBA and all the training there. But, as I said, I came in with the CBAP. I got it, well before that. And I could say the same things that you did it before. I went through and got the training, on what a business analyst is, how they're supposed to work in that. I kind of, flew by the seat of my pants. I morphed into it, as Richard said, and, without the training of, what you're really supposed to be doing, you do what, feels right and that. And, when I actually took a BA boot camp, 4-day course in how to be a business analyst, learned some things I was doing wrong. As Dolores said, learned a whole lot of techniques I were not familiar with and certainly wanted to try out and, become proficient in those. And then all three of them said, that higher level of confidence. That gives you that higher level of confidence that you're doing it the same way as many BAs across the world are doing it. And that, so, my CBAP helped me get my job, that same level of respect and among the stakeholders that I work with and everything that the others have talked about. That's, the value in that. So. And I think it was Dolores that had said it, and that about, making yourself more valuable in the interview process and the recruiting process and that, having that CBAP name. And I say that about because I'm often asked about, is ECBA worth getting, the entry level and that. And that's the one thing I say about the ECBA is, that will distinguish you among all the other candidates and that you're able to say, hey, I have this, there is learning behind it, I have knowledge and that. So, if a hiring manager gets, 50 applications for one job, where most of those are going, but if you can put those initials behind your name, you can get to the top of the list and you don't end up in file 13 with 45 of those other ones. So that is, I heard value, higher confidence, knowing that you're doing it consistently and to the standards of IIBA and you can help standardize across the company so that all BAs are delivering the same service, across the company to your business units within the company. And, it could be higher pay. I don't know specifically that I'm getting higher pay because I am a CBAP. What do they call it this year? They changed the name of the salary survey, IIBA does, the Global State of Business Analysis Report or something of that nature. It says you do get, and all the certifications, this one, the Agile, the newer ones they've introduced over the last couple of years, They say, having that certification, does can give you higher pay and that. So, and I certainly have seen it in the job postings that I see around here in the United States. I don't know if the people who have joined us from Canada, if you're seeing it up there, and that there are more job postings requiring the CBAP or requesting the desired CBAP. So I've certainly seen that grow over the past 5 years. So any of the three of you have anything else you wanted to add?
I'll just point out that I think the recertification process is valuable as well. The heavy lifting is definitely upfront when you first apply and you submit all your information. That process can take a while, but I found that valuable in that it kind of showed me that, it gave me a good chance to look back at my past experience and see what strengths I had and where I was lacking. I think that helped as I went into the studying process. And then the test, of course, is a certain amount of challenge, but the recertification process, well, you don't have to take another test, just the fact that you have to show and witness that you have participated in the profession and to some level. And there are lots of different ways you can do that. Attending chapter meetings, for example, giving talks, etc. I won't go into the details, mainly because I can't remember them all off the top of my head. There's quite a few, but I do like the fact that they encourage you to stay involved in the profession and to continue learning, and I think that's valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, they call it for the CBAP, you have to earn 60 CDUs. They're continuing development units, so it's continuing education. So that recertification requires you to continue to learn, how to be a CBAP or a business analyst, how to do the job better and give back, to the profession and that. So I do like that as well. Okay, so at this point, I can open up the floor for any questions from the audience. We've talked about the impact on your career. We talked about the value of the IIBA certification. If you wanted to know more about the actual process, the exam itself, you can absolutely ask.
Okay.
How long did it take to crack the exam?
All right.
Well,
Yes.
you have 3.5 hours to crack the exam. So yeah, it's 120 questions. You sit for 3.5 hours. You don't have to take all that time. But I will also say there's no points for finishing first or finishing earlier. You only took an hour. That doesn't help if you didn't pass the exam. So take your time and actually read through all the questions, read all 4 answer options. There's so many times somebody will read the question, they'll go A, B, oh, B is it. No, it was actually C, but you didn't read that. So read all 4 answers and
Yeah.
If you know it, answer it. If not, I'd say flag it and move on. Get the easy ones out of the way. So that's something that we teach in the study group. Is a good way to, it's always helped me. I've always taken all my exams in rounds, get the easy questions out of the way, the ones you absolutely know.
Right. I took as much time as I had available to me for the exam. In terms of preparation, I went through the study group, and I believe I took about 2 months, maybe 2 to 3 months after the study group to go through the BABOK again and take practice tests, which I found very useful. And I had quite a bit of time available to me at that point to where I was able to delve into it and feel really comfortable. I would say that The most helpful thing in preparation was the study exams, the examples to kind of give me a sense of how those exams would actually be. And you know, Watermark provides some, and there are some others available, and those were very useful. So I would say I took a study group, which I know Aaron will know this. I can't remember exactly how many weeks it was, but beyond the study group, I would say about 2 to 3 weeks of studying on my own.
Okay. And that is the question, the next question in the chat there was, how much preparation time did you take? So you all went through the study group and everything. So, you know, within that study group, outside of it, during the study group, you know, the study group, we ask you to, you know, be willing and expect to take 2 to 5 hours per week, you know, studying outside of the study sessions. So how much more time did you take in preparing for it? Anne, Dolores?
You know, I started my study group in January of 2020. It finished in April of 2020. I probably took, you know, as Richard said, a couple of months after that, just compiling my work history and completing the, you know, the rest of the application process. It was quite time consuming and a little bit unexpected. I knew that there was going to be some time involved in getting all of that information together, but I was really surprised at how long it actually took. After that, I probably started my intensive studying in probably late July, early August, and I had scheduled my exam for October. And during that time, I had read the BABAC several times over, concentrating on the areas where I knew I needed more reinforcement. And like the others have said, the Watermark practice tests were key. I had bought, you know, outside of the practice tests with the study group, outside of the ones that you get with the study guide, I had purchased an additional, I don't even remember what the subscription was, but I used it almost every single night. And, you know, they offer the full exams that are reflective or representative of the exam that you'll take, but then they also offer, you know, smaller exams that are more focused on, you know, different areas, different knowledge areas and things like that. So you can really kind of, you know, tailor your studying and how you do your practice tests according to where you find you need the most help. So from the time I started the study group to the time I passed my exam, it was from January 2020 to November of 2020. So I said I scheduled it for October, but when the date came, I wasn't ready. So I rescheduled for another month out and passed on that try. So it was worth it.
So 11 months, okay.
11 months, yeah.
Dolores?
Very similar. I finished a class, I think it was the first week in September. I scheduled mine, I had to wait till January because of the holiday. And so I scheduled mine for January. So during those 3 to 4 months, I pretty much, similar to Anne, went and purchased, I think it was like a 90-day subscription to the Watermark. Then I used some additional online other vendors that had similar type of questions, simply so that I can get a mix of the way the questions are presented. Because after a while, if you're taking the same Watermark, you know, questions, you kind of, your mind automatically tends to understand the question format, and you just kind of gloss over the responses. So 2 key things that I did was, and I know Anne did because we've spoken when we were studying for it, is that in addition to using these other vendors to use, you know, their questioning list so that we can get a variation, we also went back and then said, okay, for the Watermark ones, I know what the right answer is, but why are the other answers wrong? So we challenged ourselves to not just know what the right answer is, but to understand what was lacking in the other responses that may, you know, that disqualify them from being the correct response. So that kind of also reinforced that not only did we know what, you know, why this was correct, but we also found the missing, or, you know, requirements or the missing pieces of data to the question. So it kind of gave us that additional edge. And for myself personally, I was using a lot of the mind map type techniques on some of the knowledge areas, some of the elements that, were just not something that I was very exposed to prior. So, for me, being a learner, and this is a question you have to ask yourself also when you talk about time, that, for study is figure out what kind of learner you are. I needed all kinesthetics, I needed visual, I needed all of it. So I went in, I read the book, I did the online stuff. Then I actually took a pen and paper and, sat there, and for especially the knowledge areas that I just needed, as Ann said, a little reinforcement, another, sense of just feeling comfort level with it. I would sit there and I'd mind map it, to the best of my knowledge, and then I'd compare it to what the element was, or the technique for that particular knowledge area. And, I helped reinforce the information that way, and just pretty much, just studied, and then again, also taking into account, the amount of time you have to study. So one of the things when you're planning your exam is, realize what commitments you have at the workplace, at the family place, all of the pieces that make up your life, because you might have a great goal. I'm going to shoot, I just finished a class today, I'm going to shoot for 4 weeks, 6 weeks. But the reality is life sometimes gets in the way, and you've got to work around that and plan your study that way as well. Because you might have a great goal to say, I'm going to study every day for 4 hours, 6 hours, but then family commitments, work commitments, social commitments, whatever the case may be, can interfere with that. So keep that in mind as well.
All right. I think you said, Richard, that you took a little time, a few months after the study group to do yours. When I did it, like I said, I took that 4-day BA boot camp. And, I was really confident coming out of that, and really wanted to go and just take the exam. And I had already done my work requirement and put all the stuff together. And this was back when it was all on paper and that kind of thing. I actually had it sitting on our administrative assistant's desk, put it on the corner of her desk, say, you mail this Friday. Can't go Thursday, has to be Friday. Because Friday was the last day of the class, and you can't, apply for it until you've met all the requirements. So when I was sitting in class the last day, she mailed my application to IIBA. It's all done online now, so a lot easier than that. But I was feeling really confident and probably overconfident in that kind of thing. Really wanted to go take the exam right away. But this was 2008, and in September of 2008, the exam became computer-based. And I didn't want to go to Louisville and have to take the exam, or up to Michigan or anything like that. And I knew there was going to be places near me that I could take it, in a test center. And so I actually had to wait about 6 months before it became a computer-based system. And then I could go take the exam. So I took it exactly 1 week after it became September 1st. It became computer-based September 8th. I took the exam, passed it on my first try. During that 6 months, I didn't study a lot. I looked over at Babak and continued to study a little bit, but it wasn't hardcore or anything of that nature. Now, I will say, as far as the question about, how long will it take? Well, I say it's how much priority are you going to make it as part of your life? It could take 1 month, it could take 3 months, it could take 3 years. It depends on how much of a priority you can make it part of your life. It's certainly a lot easier if it's like, if you're in a position like me, my kids are grown, nobody's really dependent upon me, than it is for, if you got little ones running around and you've got family obligations and your significant other, to take care of. You got a large family, it's even harder. So, sometimes, you may have to go to your significant other and say, this is important to me. I want to get this. I can do it like in 6 months if you help me out. If you take these chores away from me for 6 months, I could go get this, get it done, so it's not hanging over us for a year, things like that. So if you have to have that kind of conversation, then do so. And when you do, actually obtain the certification and you're going to celebrate, remember, bring your significant other. I mean, they helped you. Celebrate with them, and that. So. Okay, so a couple other questions in there, about did you all use the Watermark Learning CBAP study guide? So of course I can answer for everybody. Yes, they all did, because we all took the study group in that. So if you go through, and I put in the chat the link to the upcoming one in February, our BABOK study group. So it covers all 3 certifications that are based on the BABOK, the CBAP, the CCBA, and the ECBA. And we will purchase either the Watermark Learning CBAP study guide if you're doing the CBAP or the CCBA. And there's a book out there, an ECBA study guide by BA Knowledge Academy. We will purchase that if you're interested in the ECBA exam. So we separate that, and ECBA, it's 50 questions. It's all, base knowledge right out of the BABOK. So that's where we treat, and we separate that so you don't have to study above, the exam that you really want to take. You will get that book. It's in the price of the study group. So, you don't go purchase it out yourself. You'll get that. We'll ship it right to your house. And that. So, so we all did use the CBAP study guide. Very valuable, and that. So there's practice questions in both those books I mentioned. Practice questions, student exercises in every chapter to help you along. The Bluegrass chapter also, we have student exercises, and we have what we call study sheets that you fill out that basically outlines the chapter. And it's an excellent study aid and that for you. So I did see earlier, Austin, you had your hand up. Did you have a question, or did you type it in?
I saw they had a question there at the end of the chat, and also Tanya Walls had a question that I think is related that I could speak to. And Tanya asked, what strategy did you use to compile the required experience for the application? And I found that to be one of the more difficult parts of the whole process, almost as difficult as the exam. But the way I went about it is when you're filling in the information, this may have changed, but at the time I did it, when you fill it in on the website, you just have a page at a time where you fill in one piece of experience, and yes, so you have to compile quite a bit of experience. So I put together a spreadsheet to kind of lay it all out, and that helped me calculate whether I had the right amount of hours. And it also gave me a chance to kind of look back over my past history and see experience that maybe it came from when I wasn't called a business analyst, but it really did apply, and it helped me kind of think through all of that process. And I'll share, I mean, it's just a basic spreadsheet, but I'll share that with a group if I can find it. I will look for it, and then if Ann or Aaron, if we have a way to distribute that to the group, we can get that out. But having it all in one view and a way to look at it gave me a chance to prepare it so I could put it into the page by page process of the website, and also just to kind of think through, okay, I did this on this particular project. Oh, yeah, that does apply to this type of business analyst work. And so that's how I went about it.
Okay. I was out there getting it. So there's the link we have to the template, the worksheet that Richard put together for the chapter, and that. And
thanks, Aaron.
how he put together his work experience for that. So I will tell you, I was a consultant for many of my years before getting the certification. So I had a lot of documentation, just artifacts, you know, like requirements packages and other things that I had created, and they had dates on them and that kind of thing. So I pieced all that stuff together, was able to look through that. I had timesheets, so I knew what client I was working for, what work I did for them, and things like that. So I was able to, you know, from all of that documentation, piece together, because you're allowed to go back to the last 10 years. You need to get, you know, 7,500 hours of BA work experience. And the BA work experience is not the time you were called a BA, because, you know, back in those days, many people misaligned BA to what we think of it as today and what IIBA defines it as. Being a BA is it a task or technique that's defined in the BABAC? You know, then you're a BBA, it doesn't matter what your job description, your job title is. So yeah, I did a lot of the same thing and used past documentation going back I think I went back 7, 8 years, and I actually put 9,000 hours on my application. I was kind of daring IIBA to find enough to reduce it that I wouldn't qualify. So, and Dolores, did you have another method to put together your work experience?
Pretty much the same, a spreadsheet. We pulled kind of the same thing, pulled timesheets, type of work, and looked at, you know, like you said, the artifacts that were generated from them, what knowledge areas, you know, they fell into, and then just kind of put that spreadsheet together for upload.
Sometimes Outlook calendars can be helpful, you know, if you're trying to look back. You know, a lot of times, you know, we have a task management system and we will timesheet against a certain client's software development request, but trying to allocate the number of timesheeted hours into the different knowledge areas can be a little bit challenging sometimes. So for me, the majority of what I do is requirements and design, but I obviously spend a great deal of time on elicitation. You know, I've got meetings with clients, phone calls. We communicate in various ways to try and solidify, you know, to understand what that need is and to, you know, get to the point where we're ready to implement the software. So, you know, sometimes Outlook calendars, if you are organized and you categorize things into folders in Outlook, it can help with some of the communications. And then just, you know, knowing that you approach a certain task in the same way, there's going to be a certain element of planning that goes along with everything. You know, when you're, you know, organizing your thoughts, when you're doing your research, you're doing your background information. And so, you know, at first you might try a couple of different things to try and, you know, understand how to best allocate those hours. And then, you know, once you find something and you're in sort of a groove, it becomes much easier. But it is a little bit of a struggle at first, especially, you know, at the time when I applied for my Cbap, I had been 15 years in with my company. I could go back 10 years. So, you know, like Aaron, I had a lot of hours that I could, you know, timesheet and document for my work history. So it was a little bit overwhelming, but you know, and a lot of times too, Dolores helped me with this because she is in management. You know, there are certain reports that could be run out of our task management system that I didn't know about. And, you know, there may be things like that. You know, I timesheet against a certain client's task, but I certainly didn't have access or didn't know how far to dig into the reporting system within that task management system to be able to extract it. So ask around, you know, if you're struggling to get the hours out of a system and organize them, you know, maybe somebody else can help with something like that. And Dolores certainly helped me with that.
Ask your resource manager, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I did want to say I put in the chat, again, a link to our upcoming study group. But because you are here today with us, we're going to give you a discount for signing up for that study group. And I put the discount code, it's a registration code. There are 2 registration levels out there that say you're an IIBA member who attended this certification chat, or you're a guest, you know, a non-member. Use whichever one of those you qualify for, and you'll see you get about a 10% discount. You know, and with that discount code or registration code of Cert Chat 114. So today is 114. So you attended the Cert Chat on 114. So use that code, all capital letters, and you could use those 2 registration levels to get even more of a discount, because we appreciate you being here. A question I saw in the chat was, how many practice tests do you recommend taking? So I think we would all say as many as you can.
Absolutely.
I thought Dolores made a really good point that you don't want to take the same one too many times, because if you start seeing the same questions or even similar questions over and over, you're really not learning at that point.
Yeah, you're memorizing, and you know, you would expect to see that on the exam, and it might not be on the actual exam. But anyway, it was mentioned in the chat, the Watermark Learning, they have an online practice test platform, and you can take multiple different kinds. You can take it on specific chapters or domains. You could take it specifically on techniques or underlying competencies. You can mix a couple of those together, or you can take a simulated exam, you know, which is going to be very much like the actual exam in that. So it does cost more. As part of the study group, or if you purchase Watermark Learning's Cbap study guide, on the inside front cover will be a code that gives you 5-day access to that online practice test. And then you could purchase more if 5 days are not enough. And I've always recommend to everybody, take that 5 days, if that's all you're going to have, and do it as close to your actual, when you plan to sit for the exam as possible. Don't do it 6 months before. You're going to forget half of what you learned from that online practice test. Take it much closer, you know, within that month before you go sit for the exam. And in that 5 days, you're allowed to take as many as you want of all different kinds. You know, stay up 24 hours a day and take all the exams.
Kind of addictive.
They are very helpful. And the one thing Ann was mentioned earlier, or Dolores was saying about understanding why some of the answers are not correct. That practice, online practicing tells you that. If you select something that's not wrong, they'll tell you why it's wrong, and they'll tell you which one is the right one. So I do really like about that. So how do you register for the study group? Don't see the link on the page. Thank you for the discount code. So yeah, if I put that in the, yeah, that is the link to the event listing. So if you're on our homepage, you go down about 2/3 the way, you see upcoming events, and then professional development events. It's like the second one listed, first or second one listed, and professional development events. It's on Tuesday evenings from February to May. So it's 14 sessions. You get all 35 professional development hours you need to qualify for the Cbap in it. It also, our study group will give you 4 practice tests, actually 3 practice tests and a practice exam opportunity within the study group. So part of those 14 sessions are 4 practice tests, exam opportunities in that. So you get that in addition, and then save your 5 days with Watermark Learning till after that, and that kind of thing. So so we give you the Cbap study guide or the ECBA study guide. We have our own study material You get access, 5-day access to the Watermark Learning Practice Test. We give you 4 practice tests. And we also, part of that study group is a mentoring session. So we ask people like these here, CBAPs from the chapter, to come in and talk to you, much like we are today. And you can ask questions of them, you know, about the whole experience, about what the process, about the exam itself, things of that nature.
I think I want to just add about one more thing, Aaron, just very quickly, because I think this is important. You know, one thing about the Bluegrass study group that I found, I really like the fact that all of the instructors were very accessible. You know, so not only do you get all of the things that Aaron described, but all of the mentors and instructors provide their email address. They tell you to reach out to them anytime you have a question. If you're not comfortable asking something during the class, or it just comes to you later, they all offer their email address, and they respond in a timely manner. And you really know that they know who you are. They're there to help you in your career path, in your journey. And that's really invaluable, because I did research and I looked at a lot of different study groups, and you know, this one, you know, it was by far the best one that I found for the value, and it helped me to pass my CBAP on my first attempt. So I'm really thankful that I stumbled across it.
Okay. We have a question from Osselgren. Hopefully this is what you wanted to ask earlier in that. I want to set, I hope that's CBAP exam, but currently working as a senior technical training instructor, business analysis, for 3 years now, and worked as a systems analyst for about 5 years. I would like to know if my experiences are valid. What advice would you give me if I have to compile the required project experience hours for the CBAP exam? Who wants to take that?
I'll give it a shot at first. Let's start with your system analyst type work that you did. Look at what it was, the functions that you did in those, the activities that you did, the tasks. How, you know, do they fall into what the BA qualifies for each knowledge area, you know, and start allocating hours. Because when you're doing the project, you know, with any type of project, you're not just doing one function. You're requiring, you know, as Ann said, you have to meet with your stakeholders to understand, you know, that stakeholder may be an internal stakeholder. It doesn't necessarily have to be an external client. It can be an internal stakeholder, another business unit, you know, in your organization that's part of that whole entire system that you're analyzing, or the work that you're doing. So, you know, take your work and look at what was produced, look at your artifacts, look at the time that was invested, look at what activities and functions were performed in each of those, and then pull out each knowledge area has its own criteria of what that knowledge area is representative of and what is inclusive to qualify for the exam. And then take each piece of it that way and start breaking it up into those hours. And this is where the spreadsheets come into play, because you can say, okay, for a system analyst, I was working on this initiative, whatever initiative it is, replacement of a particular system or whatever. And then you can take the pieces and activities you've done in that and break it up into each knowledge area. Then create your next item of, you know, the next initiative you guys did, the next project, and so forth, you know, for that. And, you know, before you know it, you'll see how many hours within each knowledge area. Because remember, I believe, and, you know, please don't quote me if I'm exactly correct, but I think as well, 4 out of the 6 have to have, you know, I think it's 900 hours, or, you know, some,
4 out of 6.
About that. So, you know, when you're breaking up your project that way and you're putting it in the spreadsheets under each knowledge area, you'll be able to see, you know, have I truly met the requirements that are needed for, you know, for sitting the exam, you know, being able to say, yes, I've met the hours in the minimum, you know, knowledge areas that are required for the exam.
Let me clarify that. You are required to have a total of 7,500 hours of BA experience in the last 10 years. So Oscar, I would say, yes, your experience is valid. and you're talking about 8 years, 5 years as a system analyst, 3 years as an instructor. So you could go back all of that 8 years and the next 2 years in front of that. But you need 7,500 hours is minimum. Of that 7,500, you need 900 hours in 4 of the 6 knowledge areas. So that 900 hours is not in addition to 7,500, it's within the 7,500. Okay, so you need a total of 7,500. So they're asking for depth 7,500 and breadth 900 within 4 areas. The CCBA is less stringent. I think it's 900 hours in 2 areas or 500 hours in 4 areas. So they're not asking for as much breadth because you're more of an intermediate BA. The Cbap is for senior BA, somebody who's been practicing business analysis for 5 years. And, like I said earlier, it doesn't matter what your title is, as system analyst or business analyst. Many companies call it different, but if you're doing, as Dolores said, the task and the techniques within the BABAC, you are doing business analysis. And if your title is CIO, you're still doing business analysis, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I would say that Dolores's approach is excellent. That's a very well said way of putting it. And I found that I had a lot more experience that applied than I thought I did before I started. And I've heard a lot of people comment on that. And so it's just that process of going back and looking at what you did and thinking about, well, does this apply to what knowledge areas could this apply to? And just because you may not have been referred to as a business analyst, that doesn't mean that some of the work you did not apply. And so I think you might be surprised once you get into it.
Absolutely.
Okay. So Tanya, did you find the event listing? Did you find it on our website and able to get to it, register for the BABAC study group? I hope so. So yes, she found it.
Great.
All right. We have reached the top of the hour. So I know a lot of us have got to get back to work and everything. Was there any last minute question anybody had? I've already seen a lot of things and useful information and those type of messages. So hopefully, you all got a lot out of this and that. So I'll make sure to put that discount code in the follow-up email you will receive tomorrow. It'll have a link to this recording, and I'll put a link also to the upcoming study group with that discount code in it. And Dolores, Richard, thank you very much for being
My
here,
pleasure.
joining us. Really greatly appreciate it. Thank you all for being here, and you have a great weekend.
And
You too,
everybody.
thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Everyone. Bye-bye.